Hello, I'm Anthony. Welcome to my series on being diagnosed with ADHD as an adult. I've decided to keep a record of my experiences from diagnosis onwards. There are three main reasons for this. Number one, I'm in the UK rather than the US, so things work differently for us. Number two, I have the distracted or inattentive type rather than the more hyperactive type. And number three, I'm an adult. I'm 41 years old. In this particular video, it's been a week since my diagnosis, and I'm starting to reflect on how things went for me. So, it's been a week now. I've had some time to think about things, and I thought I might just answer some questions. These are questions from another video. Actually, it's a video about being diagnosed with ADHD as an adult, so I thought these would be a good selection of questions. Question one, when were you diagnosed? I was diagnosed at the age of 41. So, yeah, whereas a lot of people are diagnosed as children, I took a little bit longer. Number two, what made you seek a diagnosis? I went looking for a diagnosis for two reasons, really. First of all, I was a teacher, and a lot of my students, I was teaching game development, a lot of my students did seem to have the distracted type ADHD, or actually the hyperactive or mixed type. So I was starting to look at some of the struggles they had and thinking, I have that too. At the time, that didn't really make me think, oh, I have ADHD. It was just, well, I know how to help with that, I suppose. So that was part one. Part two was making friends with a couple of people, and one of my friends also does have adult ADHD. So she started looking at some of the struggles that I was having, and at first there were just little jokes about how alike we were, and slightly later on the jokes were more about maybe you've got ADHD, and then before long when we realised just how many of the symptoms I had, all it took was just a quiet, does that tell you something? And so I went looking. You know, I'd never really questioned the fact that some people forget where their car keys are, forget what they're doing, walk into a room, walk back out again, or really struggle to get more than half a project done. Projects. The sheer number of things that I've started, never quite finished. I'll have a to-do list at the beginning of the day, and I'll just go, this is all important, and get none of it done. You know, if I tell myself I have to do 1 hour of work before I can play games, well, I won't get that hour of work done. I also won't play the games. It's not that I lack discipline. It's not that I can't say to myself, no, this is too important. I won't do the thing I want until I've done the thing I need to do. It's just, I don't do the thing. I don't do any of the things. Which I had explained to me later on is basically ADHD distracted type. It's, I can do none of the things. I can do all of the things. I can really focus on one thing at a time. You know, I'm great. If I can get started on something, I can keep going for hours. If I can't get started, if I can't hold my focus, well, it's not really going to go anywhere, is it? I wish I'd been diagnosed as a teenager. I wish I'd been diagnosed younger than then. You know, there are people who are diagnosed at 12 and still think they wish they knew earlier. So to get to 41 and not know, it's a little bit sad. But I actually have hope now, I think. Question number three. What was the process like? Well, in my case, the process wasn't actually too difficult. I've heard horror stories. I think everyone's heard horror stories. In the UK, it's not really easy to get certain diagnoses. Especially with psychiatry, it's a little bit difficult. So what I did is I looked up the screening test. A friend of mine had shown me the screening test, so I looked at the screening test and I went through the questions, and I scored a little bit high on those. So I wrote down a list of all the questions in the screening test, and then I sent statements matching each of those questions to my GP, my first line doctor. So I sent all these questions and the answers saying, this is why I believe that I may have ADHD. I got a phone call back later in the day saying, you should get an assessment. Well, yes, So I got the assessment, well, last week now. I was expecting to have to wait another 7 months. They said the waiting list wouldn't open for another 7 months, but then suddenly a month ago I got an email going, we may have space. So I got snuck in very quickly. I spoke to a psychiatrist who took me through all the individual things that I might be worried about. The psychiatrist sent me a set of checklists. So I went through the checklists and I filled in, are these things affecting me sometimes, a lot of the time, all the time, never? I had another set that I had to give to my wife, so she answered those for me. And based on these questions, I sat down with a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist asked me about how it affects my life. Started asking about simple things, are these things affecting you? At one point he asked, do you have to fidget if you sit still? If you sit for too long, do you start to fidget? Look down at my leg. Fidgeting right now, does that count? That's the thing. It always happens. It's not like this is something that sometimes I'm affected by a little bit of jiggling in the leg. Right now I'm holding myself quite still, but normally if I have to sit still too long, it drives me crazy. And this is without the hyperactivity, but this is just me as a distracted type. I can only imagine some people with the hyperactive type, of course they're going to be fidgeting. Of course they're going to be really struggling to sit still. At the end of this, he turned around and he said, well, it is quite clear you seem to have the distracted type ADHD. You fit all the diagnostic criteria. Do you mind waiting 16 weeks? So, 4 months to get the medication sorted out. So he did take me through what the possible medications were. There's another team that deals with that. So what he did was he took me through, these are the medications we like to use. The one he recommended was unpronounceable, but more commonly known as Ritalin. So I came out of this meeting with a good idea of what was going on. He said 16 weeks, that's a really good chance for you to go away and do your research, learn some more about it, think about it, make sure you definitely want these things. Question 4, did you get treatment right away? Unfortunately, the current waiting list is 16 weeks for the titration service. That's the name that they give to the group of people who give you the initial dose of medication, guide you through it, check, is it working? Do you need more? Do you need to cut down? So they'll slowly build it up and reduce it just to see, can I get the right dosage? So in the next 16 weeks, what's going to happen is that I'll have to do some ECGs and get my blood pressure checked. Whereas a child probably wouldn't need to worry too much about the side effects of being given Ritalin. An adult, we need to be careful that I'm not going to suddenly fall down dead. So what's going to happen? They're going to test, make sure that I've got a low enough heart rate, make sure my blood pressure is not too high, make sure I survive just being given these high dosages of stimulants. So hopefully in 16 weeks, I'll be able to start the first dose, slowly build up, see how it affects me, see whether I can tolerate it, and over time they'll get the right drugs. But yeah, right now, I think it's going to be a little while before I get treatment. Question number 5. How did you tell people? Well, at the moment, I haven't actually told very many people. I've told a couple of friends who have ADHD actually. In fact, it seems that a number of people that I consider friends have ADHD. So I've told a few people. I've told my parents, my little sister, who is a nurse. I believe her answer was, duh. Question number 6. How do you deal with those who disagree? Well, I've been very lucky. I haven't told very many people. Those people I have told, they haven't actually disagreed. There's very little to say when I say I've got ADHD, because these people just take one look at me and go, well, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Thank you for watching. I hope to have the 1 month later video up soon. At the moment, I haven't heard anything back for quite a while, so we'll have to see what comes next.